Good afternoon. Really? That was just like terribly anemic. Good afternoon. They're getting better, aren't they? Good afternoon. We're going to have a contest between the upper bowl and the lower bowl. Upper bowl, good afternoon. Ooh, they really set the bar high. Lower bowl, good afternoon. Whoa, that was awesome. Now everybody, all at once, good afternoon. That's it. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. No reply necessary. Today is a great day for Xavier University, and it's a great day because you are here. As I look out at you, what I see, in point of fact, is the future of Xavier University, and your future as well, all of you. I'm speaking, of course, to all of you first-year students in a very particular way, but to parents and families as well, because no matter who you are, students, parents, family members, all of you now are part of the Xavier family. And what I want to do today, really, is to tell you something about who and what this family is, what's important to us, the values we stand for, what we try to do here at this place and beyond this place and into the world. Let me begin by telling you a little bit of my story. I first came to Xavier long before you students were born, sort of about the time that the earth was cooling, I think. Back in 1984, I was a young Jesuit then, and this was part of my training. I was sent here to teach. I was a not quite brand new member of the Jesuits, the Society of Jesus, the religious order behind this school. More on them in a moment. I taught here, worked in campus ministry, lived in Brockman Hall, did a variety of things. Left for 4 years to study theology, and after ordination returned. Stepped kind of back into the stuff I was doing, teaching history, working in campus ministry, but in no time flat I found myself in administration, working in the development office, for example, but I also ran one of our honors programs for a while. Over the time that I was here then, until I became president in 2001, I had the opportunity to get to know folks from all over the campus. From people who keep the grounds looking beautiful, to the people who recruit our students and work in the financial aid office, to alumni and benefactors across the country, indeed, in some cases around the world, and especially our faculty who are so very much at the heart of our enterprise, who will be the people who really form your experience. And from all of this, the thing that I've come to know more than anything else is this, that there are way more good people here at Xavier University than any of you will ever have the opportunity or the time to get to know. And that's who you are, really. You are now some of those good people here at Xavier University. There's more to come, and I'll dive into it in a moment, but I want to ask a question, first of all, which is, so how you doing? This long day, kind of emotional, I'm guessing, you know. And along the way, there have been all kinds of questions that have occurred to you probably. You know, things like, man, I can't believe we forgot that from the Bring to Xavier list. I guess we got to go back to Target again, you know. Or, you lost your all card? Who loses their all card on the first day? You can't possibly have lost your all card already. No, dear. I didn't bring the extension cords with me because I thought you were doing that, dear, honey. How does this blankety-blank bookcase go together? My guess is you've had a number of those kinds of things during the course of the day, right? You know. And so tonight what I want you to do is back up from them, settle in. Believe this, that where you are now is where you are supposed to be, no matter what it is that's gone on in the rest of the day. Right here, right now, this is where you should be, where God wants you to be. And what I want to do is paint a big picture for you. Talk a little bit, once again, about this Xavier family that all of you joined today and what makes us tick. Most of you are thinking, I'm sure, and you students especially, that, well, you know, Xavier University, it's like a 4-year proposition, you know, first year, second year, junior year, senior year. Parents hope that it stops there, you know. And what I'm saying is it's not that, but not in the way that you may fear, right? It's not about that. It's not simply about the 4 years that are here, because your being here is about these 4 years in front of you, to be sure, but really it's about the life past those 4 years. Your life will be a different life than otherwise it might have been for your being here. You will have opportunities in front of you, seek out careers, find passions, put yourself into play in the world around you in all kinds of ways that will be different because of the time that you spend here and what you become during the course of your time here. Here at Xavier, we're going to invite you to think about your whole life. Not simply what you will do for a living, but how you will make a life, the life that's yours. A life that is always found in the context of friends and family, a life that's always lived in community, a life that includes and encourages, we hope, giving back to the people around you and in whatever way possible for you to do that. So that's what I welcome you to, not simply Xavier, but to the rest of your life, to the rest of your life. You've chosen to become part of a tradition by coming here, a tradition that's really hundreds of years old. The Jesuit Catholic tradition which this university is built upon and which you will help carry into the future. You don't realize it yet, but there's really a powerful connection between that hundreds years old Jesuit tradition and that future that you will go into because of who you are and who you can become here. And I'd like to paint a little bit of that big picture for you. There are many Jesuit colleges and universities around the world, and 27 of them here in the United States. If you're a sports fan, you probably know Georgetown, Marquette, Creighton, schools which, like Jesuit schools which, like Xavier, are part of the Big East. And maybe you've heard of Georgetown. Well, I said that already, didn't I? Duh. Maybe you've heard of Boston College and Gonzaga. And just about any school that has the name Loyola in it, so Loyola Chicago, Loyola New Orleans, Loyola University of Maryland in Baltimore, Loyola Marymount in California, in Los Angeles. All these are Jesuit schools, and there's many others, and all those Jesuit schools share certain characteristics. All of them have, for example, a broad-based liberal arts core curriculum that takes the arts, the sciences, philosophy, theology, and more, and couples that core curriculum with the majors that you have chosen or will choose. So what we emphasize throughout the entire experience here at Xavier is logic, ethics, written and oral expression, critical thinking, and values. Now, the tradition of Jesuit education goes back to the founder of the Jesuits, Ignatius Loyola, that guy with all the schools named after him. He was born in the Basque region in the north of Spain in 1491. And he fused together two discrete traditions in education to make something new, and is, as a result, considered one of the great educators in European history. One of those traditions was the monastic tradition of Greece and Rome, rooted in classical learning. The other was a newly emerging tradition in the Renaissance that sought to equip people, well, men, this was the 16th century after all. It sought to equip them to work well in the public sphere within the societies and communities around them. In other words, to lead lives of civic engagement. And so, a Jesuit education puts these two things together, broadly theoretical, practically applicable. We believe that the best education that you can receive is not narrow technical training, to major, let's say, in nursing and nursing only, and that's all you do is nursing. We believe the best education that you can receive that will prepare you not only for that career, but for the rest of your life as well, and make sure that 5 years from the time you graduate, 10 years after that, you are steadily doing better and better and better because of the broad, deep education you receive through the core curriculum itself. The goal of Ignatius Loyola was not to stuff your head full of ideas, or to send you out into the world ready to become successful in a narrow kind of way. Rather, what Ignatius wanted was to transform your character, to make you different in some ways. the best versions of yourselves that you can imagine. He wanted to transform you, and this transformative education causes you to learn more and more about who it is God calls you, in fact, to be. As you go through your career here at Xavier, you're going to bump into, and soon, some good Jesuit words and phrases. You'll not remember them at the end of this talk, but you'll certainly remember them long before you graduate. Here's a couple. Cura personalis, a Latin phrase. It means the care of the person. Here at Xavier and at all Jesuit schools, we believe that you come to us as full, entire people. You have rich, rich histories, gifts inside you that you have not begun to even understand yet. You lead complicated lives with all kinds of pressures coming at you. You're people filled with hopes and dreams and desires and all of that. And we can't possibly work with you in the classroom if we don't take all of that into account. And so looking at you as the whole and entire people you are is a hallmark of what happens here at Xavier. Cura personalis, the care of the person. The second one is another Latin word, magis, magis. It means kind of the more or the greater in the sense of generous excellence, as in no matter how much you've done before, whatever good you've done, whatever you've seen in your life, there's always more good, more to be done, more to see in front of you than there is behind you. It's a generous excellence that's grounded in God's desires for all of us. Here at Xavier, you'll discover that we take that magis seriously. We demand excellence from you, and we aren't going to settle for anything less, because anything less would not be worthy of you. We're going to support you, though, every step of the way to discover that excellence that is yours. And so the magis, the more or the greater. Third, finding God in all things. Finding God in all things. We Jesuits believe that this world comes to us from the hand of God, and God continually creates and sustains it moment by moment by moment. We are here because God wills it in a very real way. And so for us to poke at the surface of reality, for us to gaze into the eyes of another person, for us to really study the world around us is in some ways to study the book of God and who it is and how it is that God reveals himself in the world around us. It's an incredibly positive thing to say about a world that sometimes doesn't quite look that way, but finding God in all things. Fourth, the service of faith and the promotion of justice. We believe here that professing faith with our lips is a fine thing, a splendid thing, an important thing, but that the promotion of justice is something that's absolutely required. It's what faith does when it gets up off its knees in prayer and goes striding out into the world seeking to make a difference. Those two things are inextricably linked. If for no other reason than the God of the Bible was always on the side of the vulnerable, the poor, the marginalized, the widow, the stranger, the orphan, the outcast, and so on. And because that's where God makes his home, that's where we need to be planted as well. The service of faith and the promotion of justice. And finally, men and women for and with others. All of us, no matter how old we are called to discover the purpose of our lives. And the only way we can really do that in this tradition is outward, is discovering who we are called to be in the context of the communities that we call home. Happiness comes from a life given over to and with others. And so men and women for and with others is central to this tradition as well. Now, each Jesuit university has a way of capturing these elements and more and defining how it is that we practice them. It's typically in what's called a mission statement. Here's a chunk of ours. Xavier's mission is to educate each student, note that, each student, intellectually, morally, spiritually. Got that? Intellectually, morally, and spiritually. Intellectually, that which goes on in between your ears, so to speak, as your brain reasons and tries to figure things out. Morally, those things that have to do with your actions in the world and how you put your values into play in what you do in the world around you. Spiritually, how you see your own life against the horizon of the unchanging and eternal, that which we call God in a variety of ways. And how is it that you are related to that eternal, unchanging horizon? Now, how do we do that here at Xavier? How do we put together the intellectual, the moral, and the spiritual? Well, it happens really through a series of integrations. The first integration is between our core curriculum and the major you will choose, as I mentioned a moment ago. Your major, whatever it is, education, accounting, economics, English, marketing, biology, history, philosophy, psychology, nursing, whatever it might be. Some of you are probably exploratory majors. Anybody exploratory here? A few? You know, for those of you who raised your hands, the rest are lying. Because they will do a heck of a lot of exploring that they don't even understand yet, right? And so whatever that major is, it will be coupled with, built upon a deep foundation in the liberal arts traditions that I named earlier. History, philosophy, theology, science, and more. These basic requirements will create certain casts of mind, outlooks in you, train you well in certain important skills, thinking clearly, expressing yourself well, and so on. And what you're going to discover is that when you graduate from here and go on to whatever it is you go on to, medical school, law school, or out in the business world, you will discover that you ask questions that other people don't. That you think of things that people who were not trained as broadly as you were trained simply don't occur to them. And so that integration between the core curriculum and the major you will choose, that's the first way in which we educate you intellectually, morally, and spiritually. Here's the second, the integration of what you will learn in the classroom with what you will learn and do out of the classroom. Many of the most important things that will happen to you here will happen to you in a whole variety of ways. Athletic competition, theatrical and musical performance, participation in student government or professional organizations, volunteer opportunities, internships, and the like. Travel, whether it's locally, here in the country, around the world. Some of the most important things, of course, will happen to you through the friendships that you make. And all of these need somehow to get knit together. You know, one of the things that's really great about Xavier, I think, is that if you want to write for the student newspaper, the Newswire, guess what? You don't have to be a journalism major. You want to produce videos? Don't have to major in digital media. Play in the pep band? You don't have to be a music major. If you want to act in a theater production, you don't have to be a theater major. Indeed, you can stretch yourself in all kinds of ways, in all sorts of directions, and try on all kinds of different things. Through clubs and organizations, you'll learn not simply those different areas of interest, but you'll also accept leadership responsibilities as you work as presidents and so on within those organizations. Some of the best lessons that you will learn at Xavier will be through those clubs and organizations and activities that Xavier provides in aplenty. Now, shameless plug time. On Wednesday, August 28th, mark that down, in the yard in front of Gallagher, we're going to host something we call Club Day. Club Day. It's an opportunity for you to go from booth to booth to booth to booth to booth and discover all the different clubs and organizations that we have here at Xavier. Give your name to them and sign up. Get to know them a little bit, have conversations, see what kind of floats your boat. I'd urge you to get involved in something that you've already been engaged in and found really powerful for you and positive. But I'd also urge you to stretch yourself a little bit. Go somewhere, try something that's a little new for you, outside your comfort zone a little bit perhaps. Because you're going to find in all kinds of ways that your lives will be richer for those chances that you take if you get involved. So that integration is between what happens in the classroom and what happens outside the classroom. The third and final integration is what happens between the campus and the community. Your lives are going to eventually take you beyond Xavier University to a place where God calls you to be, the communities that you will call home in the future. I'd urge you to get started on that path now. While you're here at Xavier, you'll be challenged to think beyond the confines of our campus and get involved in ways that make a difference up the street, downtown, across the city, in the wider world. I will be candid here because I must be. If I'm not, I worry that you might wonder what I stand for, and if you have to wonder what I stand for, I wonder if I'm standing for the right thing. That got your attention, didn't it? 2 short years ago, as we welcomed our new first-year students, we did so in the shadow of the searing events at Charlottesville. The images still burn as I remember them. I found the condemnation at that time of all varieties of racism helpful, but I also found it incomplete. Certainly, I do condemn all varieties of racism, and Xavier University does so as well. But while we do so, we're also very clear that in the United States, at least, there is one kind of racism and one kind of racism only, which enslaved people. There is one kind of racism and one kind of racism only, which stripped them of voting rights and sought in multiple other ways to impose a slave-like system through Jim Crow laws after slavery's formal abolition. In the United States, there is one form of racism and one form of racism only, which intimidated black people through the resurgence of the Ku Klux Klan in the early 20th century, and at that time built Confederate memorials to teach them their place and terrorized them through lynchings and firebombings and more. There's one form of racism and one form of racism only through which corrupt real estate practices known as redlining handicap the opportunities of African American families to accrue household wealth through home equity. There is one form of racism and one form of racism only, which in all these ways and in many, many more, made it more likely for a college-age African American male today to be in prison rather than college. I'll say that again. Made it more likely for a college-age African American male in the United States today to be in prison rather than in college. And the cousins of this racism have crippled the lives and histories of Native Americans, Hispanics, Asians, and others as well. To bring it closer to home, 4 years ago, an African-American man was shot and killed in Cincinnati by a University of Cincinnati police officer during a routine traffic stop. After 2 trials, jurors still could not reach a verdict, and the case did not go to a 3rd trial. And so Cincinnati joins that long, long list of cities where events like this have occurred, and all these events always cast powerful, important spotlights on the glaring disparities between the races on such issues as educational outcomes, the health of the places where they live, housing opportunities, infant mortality rates, employment possibilities, life expectancy, you name it, to say nothing about police and community relations. And now, to bring it home exactly, 3 years ago here at Xavier, the campus was rocked by 2 back-to-back episodes of racial bias. To say that it broke the usual, well, it can't happen here mentality at Xavier is to put it mildly. As a result, the diversity and inclusion strategic plan we were already working on suddenly became a whole lot more vital, sharper, and more important. And our bias advisory and response team, which includes faculty, staff, and students, became proactive and not only about reporting, but sharing incidents as well, so that all of us may be aware, that we might learn, that we might grow. Here's the takeaway. Here's the takeaway. What I have just described to you is our republic's original sin. Nowhere you go in this country for the rest of your life will be exempt from this. The kinds of problems that we have here in Cincinnati, you have in the communities you came from. And you will find them once again in the communities you'll call home in the future. I beg you, make a choice to make a difference in that world, so that people around you who live other kinds of lives, thank you. so that the people around you have the opportunities that we all take so easily for granted. The future of our republic depends upon the choice that you will make. As this talk rounds third and heads for home, I want to suggest 3 rules of the road that I think will be helpful for you in getting the most out of your Xavier University experience. First, be open to ideas. Be open to ideas. As Xavier students, you are the newest participants in a conversation as old as humanity itself. From the time that Adam and Eve, or whoever they were, looked up at the stars in the heavens and wondered what those lights might be. Or as their descendants grew, as they looked around themselves and thought, you know, these societies we've set up, how could you do that better than we've done it? You're going to have an opportunity here to join in that conversation. You're going to discover along the way, though, that some of the ideas you're asked to consider are going to shake you up a bit. They're going to ask you to look at what you thought was always true, always taken for granted, the water through which you as fish swim, and think a little bit about it. That might become a little destabilizing for you. I will be, personally, very disappointed if that does not happen to you. And why? Because it's only in those ways that you and I kind of grow into the larger people that we are called to become. But we can also trust this. In the Jesuit Catholic tradition, we believe that one of the greatest things God gave us are these rational reasoning minds of ours. And we believe that by using these rational reasoning minds of ours, we can never really be led astray. And so by doing what you do naturally, that is to say, thinking hard about these things around you, you'll always be, inevitably, we believe, led back to the God who made you. So be open to those ideas. Second, be open to yourself. Don't sell yourself short. Don't assume that you can't do something, especially you have been told that you can't do. Do not let somebody else define who you are. Don't assume that something is beyond you, outside of your power, beyond your ability, or somehow you aren't worthy of it, you know? Don't ask me to do that. That's my smart sister who went to whatever school, not me. Whatever you have known in your life thus far, whatever you have done in your life thus far, whatever you've accomplished in your life thus far, is just preparation now for what you will know and do and accomplish in the years ahead of you. There are more gifts inside you than you know. And even the gifts you already know of inside you, well, friends, they have meaning and shade and definition that you haven't begun to glimpse yet. You will spend the rest of your lives discovering the greatness that is within you. I guarantee it. It will take your breath away if you really open yourself up to the person who is inside you. You know, the admissions office, who recruited all of you, tells me that you're not only one of our largest classes ever, you are also among the most gifted and most talented classes in the history of Xavier University. And what I have to say to you is prove it. Prove it. Prove it in the classroom and out of the classroom. Prove it on the campus and in the community. Prove it to me. Prove it to your faculty. Prove it to the people who live down the corridor from you on the residence halls. But most of all, prove it to yourself. Exceed your own highest and best expectations that you have for you. And then, you know what? Exceed them again, and exceed them again, and again and again and again until, you know what happens? You run a ghost of a chance of growing into the person that God has made you to be. So be open to yourself. Third and finally, be open to others. Be open to others. Because what's true of you is true of all those people around you right now. There's more inside of every person sitting in this arena bowl than we can possibly know or imagine. And so, we all of us have a fundamental choice to make. Are we going to be people who help those people around us get the best out of themselves or not? Are we going to be the kind of people who will challenge when necessary, support as we can, and so on, such that everybody around us can become a better person just because we were there? Or not? Or will we get in their way in some way? I want to talk about that second option first, the getting in the way, the impeding. Certainly one of the cardinal sins of a university, because it's a cardinal sin in life, is acting or speaking in demeaning or belittling ways so as to discourage people because of their race or gender or sexual orientation or gender identity or where they're from or how it is you perceive them in whatever way. If you harass people in whatever way, we will take it very seriously. Very, very seriously. All of you first-year students in the next couple of days and weeks will be given tools and resources such that if you experience any kind of harassment, gender-based violence, whatever it is it might be, we will make sure that you have numbers to call, allies to contact, places to go, that you know what the next steps are. And if you do the harassing, whether you meant it or not, well, friends, you're going to discover, and painfully, how seriously we take it. Enough of that. Let me flip it over, speak about it positively. Not the carrot, the stick, so to speak, but the carrot. I used to teach American history, and somebody I loved to read was Ralph Waldo Emerson. And Ralph Waldo Emerson said that our deepest desire for each and every one of us is that we will find someone who will help us get the best out of ourselves. The best out of ourselves. So be that person that Ralph Waldo Emerson thinks you can be. The kind of person who helps get the best out of others around you. Here's a way you might think of it. I'd like all the new first-year students, please, to stand. First-year students, stand, please. Let's give them a hand, huh? Now what I'd like you to do, stay standing, is look to your right and look to your left. Got it? Now, this is the part where at some schools, what they will tell you is, you know, in 4 years, only one of you is going to be here. Only one of you is going to be here. That's not what we do at Xavier, okay? Raise your hand, you first-year students, and swear, come on, hands up, you, I'm looking at you. Swear that you will make sure that the people around you get to the other side of the arena for graduation in 4 years. Swear it. Swear it. Awesome. You know, because they're first-year students, if I don't say to be seated, they'll just stand there. So, thank you. A former Jesuit superior, Father Peter Hans Kolvenbach, has said that the real measure of our Jesuit universities lies in who our students become. Not simply over the course of your years here, but in the years after that, in that whole life that you'll be leading long into the future. And so, members of the class of 2023, all of us here at Xavier look forward to your starting this journey here with us and seeing who you will become. This will be the time of your life in so many ways. Memorable times that you'll look back on fondly for years to come, indeed for the rest of your lives. There'll be parts of a community where care for the person, intellectually, morally, spiritually, and beyond is a priority. A place you'll come back to in years to come over and over and over again to reminisce with great friends about wonderful times. Those days will stretch out over the course of years here, stretch out beyond that time here into the rest of your lives, as I said, you will be different because of what begins here for you today. All of which reminds me of a story. A few years ago, after a talk at a local high school that I did, a man came up to me and said that what I had said reminded him of a sign that he keeps over his desk. And that sign had 3 simple words on it, 3 simple words. Good enough isn't. Good enough isn't. And I thought to myself 2 things. I thought first, man, what a wise man that is. What a wise man, because he knew that there were going to be days, because friends, all of us have them, where he would be tempted to settle for the good enough. And on those days, that sign would do its job. It would remind him that deep in his heart, he knew that good enough wasn't, and that he had better aim a little bit higher. That's the first thing that occurred to me. What a wise, wise man this was. The second thing that occurred to me was, well, if good enough isn't, what else isn't either? So I began thinking, well, kind enough? Is kind enough enough? Well, it's not. How about devoted enough? Is that enough? Not quite. Disciplined enough, committed enough? They aren't. Caring enough? Isn't. Generous, hardworking, compassionate, thoughtful, loving, giving, any good word you can think of, enough isn't enough. And why? Because God's placed a restlessness inside of us all. The future us, gnawing away at us, hoping that that's who we will become. It's that magis I spoke of, that greater, that more, that draws us always to itself. And so, friends, once again and finally, welcome to Xavier University. Welcome to that more that is the rest of your lives. I could not be happier to see you.
Well, good afternoon. I know Father Graham just practiced, so let's try it again. Good afternoon. My name is Alfredo Mercedes.
And my name is Sam Peters, and we're both student leaders here on Xavier's campus for the 2019-2020 school year.
Constructed by a committee of various Xavier students, the Xavier Student Commitment was created, approved, and adopted by the university.
Xavier's current students have already joined the commitment, and as new Xavier students, we're asking all of you to do the same.
Please take a moment and review the Xavier Student Commitment printed on the inside of your programs. This commitment exemplifies what it means to be a Xavier student, students of integrity, justice, and generosity, for and with others.
Now, class of 2023, and all Xavier students past and present, please stand with us and repeat after us as we recite the Xavier Student Commitment. We are Xavier Musketeers.
We are Xavier Musketeers.
Ooh, no. One more time.
We are Xavier Musketeers.
We are Xavier Musketeers.
We are unique individuals.
Who come together in the spirit of St. Ignatius.
To learn together.
To serve together.
And we will succeed in changing the world together.
Now with that attitude, try it again.
And we will succeed in changing the world together.
We act with integrity.
Justice.
And generosity.
All for one.
And one for all.
One more time. All for one.
And one for all.
Thank you.
Part 2. Just kidding. You may have seen this on YouTube or Facebook or something like that. But if you have, don't spoil it for the rest. So before I go into this blessing that will help us conclude our time together, I'd like to remind the parents that what's going to happen next is we'll allow you some time to say goodbye to your sons and daughters. But after that, we'd like you to make your way, if you have the time, to a reception. It's in the banquet hall facility, which is at the exact opposite end of the arena up on the main concourse floor. Curiously, that's the side of the arena that your students will graduate from in a few short years that will, guarantee it, fly by. I'd like you all please now to stand. This blessing is in 3 parts. First, from parents to their children. Second, from the children to the parents. And then third, for us all. So to begin, parents, I'd ask you to please to place a hand on the shoulder or back or head of your student. And let these words that I speak kind of echo in your hearts, so that they could be your words as well. May you be powerfully loving and lovingly powerful. May love always be your guide with family, friends, and colleagues. May you listen carefully to your own heart and always to the hearts of others. May you have the strength to overcome fear and pride and follow instead what has life and meaning for you. May you be an active, committed, positive force in your community. May you show respect to all people of all ages and races and help make a better world for the poor, the sick, the elderly, the outcast, the young. May you constantly bring your gifts and talents forward every day without hesitation, reservation, or expectation of reward. And may you know every day how grateful I am to God for the gift of you. And know as well in your heart the depth of my own love for you. The next part of this will reverse the order. And so students, put an arm around your mom or dad's shoulder. Let them know how much you love them through your touch. And let this prayer be yours. May you know how grateful I am to you for all you have done for me, with the life you have given me, for the lessons you have taught me, for the love you have shown me, for the comfort you have provided me. Never forget how very much of you I carry forward with me into this new chapter of my life. I go into it with a mix of excitement and fear, for I do not know what the future may bring, but I go into it confidently because of you. May you always trust in all the work you have done in me, for your ideals are my ideals, and your hopes are my hopes. Always remember that I am growing into them just as you are. And as we grow together, we will meet in a new way, on a new and higher ground, as friends and as equals. But for all of that, I will always be yours. And if I do not call as often as I know I should, or text, or tweet, or ask for money when I do, know that no one else will ever have the place in my heart that you do. May God always bless you and give you all the best of gifts until we meet again. And finally, a prayer for us all. It comes from Black Elk, the Native American wise man, who is now actually on the path to sainthood. Grandfather, great mysterious one, you have been always, and before you, nothing has been. There is nothing to pray to but you. The star nations all over the universe are yours, and yours the grasses of the earth. Day in, day out, you are the life of things. You are older than all need, older than all pain, older than all prayer. Grandfather, all over the world, the faces of living ones are alike. In tenderness they have come up out of the ground. Look upon your children with children in their arms, that they may face the winds and walk the good road to the day of quiet. Teach me to walk the soft earth, a relative to all that live. Sweeten my heart, fill me with light. Give me the strength to understand and the eyes to see. Help me, for without you, I am nothing.